Hey there guys, welcome back to ARTFX Tutorial Tuesday Season 2 about glitch hop. First of all, I want to apologize for last week's video. It was a little bit uninteresting, a little bit too long, and that was mainly because I was trying to show you guys how to use Liquid Rhythm and how you can come up with interesting stuff using it, and I wasn't actually prepared that much, and I didn't spend that much time with Liquid Rhythm either, so I think that was why it felt a little bit unnatural and like I wasn't really knowing what I was talking about. So since I ended up last week with something that I didn't expect to end up with, I was trying to make some percussion and I ended up with something that sounded a lot more musical. So this week I am going to show you how to make some percussion. But first I want to show you what I did, because I really spent some time on the funky sounding loop. I found the original thing that I made last week a little bit too complicated, a little bit too messy, and it wasn't really the way I wanted, so I changed it up a little bit, and as you can see I made it a lot more simple. So I'm gonna show you how this sounds. Listen. So as you can hear, it does sound a lot better right now, and it is a little bit less complicated. And I can show you that because of here, for instance, we have this big gap of nothing, and that basically gives us some room to fill in with other sounds, which is a lot better than what I ended up last week, because basically all of these spots were filled out, and that's when things become a little bit messy, and you sometimes need to take out some stuff. You know, less is more in a lot of cases. So, let's start off with this video. I added a drum rack right here with some hi-hat samples that I found, and I also have this loop. It's coming from the Thomas Penton Essential Series sample pack that is available at Loopmasters, and the hi-hats come from the same sample pack. So if you are looking for some great samples, check out the Thomas Penton Essential Series. Let's start off with the hi-hats and create a new MIDI clip. And let's open this clip up. And the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add a hi-hat to every offbeat, or at least to the first offbeat. Let's bring the volume down a little bit. Let's see. I think that one sounds okay, so I'm gonna add it right there. And let's turn off these two tracks and listen to how that sounds. I want it right here, so I'm gonna add this one at the start of each particular beat. I'm gonna play around a little bit with these. This one. Let's see, I'm gonna place one right there. Let's place them right here. Maybe just add one hi-hat to every start of the beat, just to give that main drums a little bit more high end. I mean, and I'm gonna repeat those those offbeat hi-hats at the end, so we get something like sounds pretty good. I might change that last one to that more open hi-hat sounding thing to create that kind of sound. I am gonna take the volume of that open hat down a little bit. And I'm gonna take the volume of that one down as well. And now I want to show you how you can use a loop to make your percussion loops a lot more interesting. So what I did is I have this particular loop. It's coming from the Thomas Penton Essential series, and let's see, which one is it? It's the Thomas Penton Essential Series filler loop number 110, which is originally recorded at 128 BPM, and our tempo is at 110. So what I did is I pre-warped all of these particular hits in this loop, so they now fall exactly on the beat, because there was a little bit of swing in the original. So when I play this, it's gonna sound pretty much like a normal loop that you would hear in electro house or other kind of house music. See? So with the loop pre-warped, I have selected the beats warping mode. I set it to preserve the transients, and then I took this top one, which basically means that it's gonna play each transient, and it's gonna play it until the transient is over. It's not gonna stretch it or anything, so you keep the original quality of the sound, and it basically adds a little bit of silence between each of these particular warp markers, which is great. I mean, it sounds a lot better than when you take the complex modes. The complex modes do sound pretty good on vocals and other sounds that are a little bit longer in their release or sustain. So when you have longer sounds, I would really encourage you to use the complex modes, but for percussive sounds, use the beats and set the transient warping mode to this one. Sometimes one of the others sounds pretty cool as well, but I really think that this one sounds the best. So now I need to select the groove, because this is obviously straight on the beat, and I wanted to have the same groove as my funky sounding loop. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to here, to the groove section, and because I've added all these warp markers, when I select a groove, it's gonna apply that groove to the warp markers that I placed inside this loop. So let's do that. Take that groove that I chose, and let's listen to how it sounds right now. Compare that to this, and you can hear it does sound a little bit more funky, a little bit more swinging. So let's see how this sounds together with our percussion. I am gonna take the volume down of the fill loop. And I'm gonna try to make this a little bit shorter. And I'm gonna EQ it, because there's obviously some low end. So I'm gonna take out all of the low end, like that. Let's see how this sounds together with the drums. Now, I don't want to use this loop all the way through this particular sample. I only want to use little bits of it that I think sound good. So I'm gonna try and find some of these bits. Let's take out these. Let's see how this first part sounds. You see, that sounds pretty interesting. So I'm gonna do the same for this. And I'm gonna keep these last ones in there. Take out this entire loop. And I'm gonna duplicate this particular part. So now we have something that sounds like this. And I do think it sounds a lot better. I'm gonna take out this one to see how it sounds. I like that. Let's take that one out as well there. And this is basically loop that I think sounds pretty good. Oh, wait, I'm not gonna consolidate this because when I do, it's also gonna save the groove and the beats warping mode that I selected, and it's gonna save that to the actual audio file, which I don't want because I want to be able to change this later on. So I'm gonna duplicate that, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add a group track. So this drum rack is now grouped in the group track, and I'm gonna place this audio track in there as well. So now I can basically just play this. And I can throw in an EQ on this entire particular group. Just to make sure there are no low frequencies in there, I'm going to add another high pass. And I'm going to play around a little bit with the EQ. Just to bring out those hi-hats a little bit. You know, I want to make them a little bit more more pronounced. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the mode of this particular point in the EQ to, it's now selected, it's the bell curve. And I'm going to make this into a, how do you call this one? A high shelf? Something like that. I'm going to give it a sharp Q. And let's see how this sounds. Bring the volume down a little bit. Or the gain, sorry. You can hear it really makes that offbeat hi-hat a lot more pronounced, which is what I want. So now, and I think I can raise the volume a little bit on the fill loop. And let's add some more stuff to this. What can I do? Let's see. Let's add a compressor to the fill loop to basically just add a little bit of compression to it. Bring up the attack a little bit. And maybe bring up the release. Or bring it down, see how that sounds. I like that. So now I'm going to add a saturator to the fill loop. And turn on soft clipping. I'm happy with the way this loop sounds right now. So together with the main drums and the funky chops, we get something that sounds like... Maybe I need to bring in some more low mids to the fill loop. And there are some more things that I can do now. For instance, when I go to this one, you can see I changed this one to, well, 60, around there. If I put it at 100, the individual hits are going to sound a little bit more longer, a little bit more sustained, with a longer tail. So now I can actually throw on, let's see, Shocks Audio Transient Shaper. Let's add it before the compressor. I'm gonna add a little bit of drive. I'm also gonna add a little bit of attack. And I'm gonna take out some of the release, which makes the individual hits sound a little bit more snappy, a little bit more as individual hits, because this was obviously part of a loop and I don't want it to sound as part of a loop. I want it to sound as individual hits put together to form a loop, if that makes any sense. So by doing that, you really give the loop a little bit more character. So I'm gonna do the same on the group track. So I'm actually gonna do this twice on the fill loop and once on the hi-hat loop. So I'm adding a little bit of drive, adding a little bit of attack, and taking out some of the release, just a tiny bit on this one. Okay, so I'm gonna add a EQ8 to the hi-hat track, to the drum rack, and let's see, I'm gonna take out all of the low end. Now I am also doing this in the group itself, but I do find that doing this, just, you know, to be sure there are no low frequencies coming through, and it just makes it sound a little bit better. Maybe add a little bit of these high mids or mids, which will make that offbeat hi-hat even more pronounced. So now with the main drums and the funky sounding loop, we get something that sounds like this. And you know, you can play around with this if you want. Just, you know, to find some things that sound better. You know, this is a really time-consuming task. But if you spend long enough doing this, it's definitely gonna make your track sound a lot better. So yeah, that was it for this week's video, I think. I can show you how it sounds with the more up-tempo kind of part. And if we compare that to what it was, I mean, it just sounds a lot better. That was it for this week's video. Next week I'm gonna dive into making some melodic content. I'm really gonna dive into the melody part of the track, and it's basically gonna be a renewed and improved version of one of the videos that has been seen quite a lot from the first season, which was called all about chords, skills, and melodies. So if you want to know some more about that, I'm gonna dive into that next week. So one of the things that's going to be different, because in the first one I chose the scale of A minor, which is basically a scale that is equivalent to the C major scale. It only uses the white notes on a keyboard. And this one I'm going to make it a little bit more complicated. I'm going to use the E flat major scale, which uses the white and black notes on a piano, and thus it's going to be a little bit more complicated, and I want to explain a little bit more about this particular scale. Yeah, so more about that next week. If you like these videos and want to see more, please subscribe to my channel. If you have any questions regarding this video or other videos, or you just want to, you know, give me a little shout out, give me a little idea for one of the upcoming videos, then click the bottom left to tweet your questions, ideas, things to @ARTFX STUDIOS at Twitter, or click the bottom right to go to my website, register there for an account, and you will get access to the forum where you can post your music, get some feedback by me or other producers, and just have a great time. Happy producing, and see you next week.